It's kind of like putting a square peg in a round hole. It's not very comfortable. Hey guys, it is cold here in Texas. I hope wherever you guys are located at, you're staying warm. So to start our project, we're going to need some of this 18 gauge wire. This is 2 pieces cut at 8 centimeters long each. I'm also going to use some 18 gauge wire on the spool. You can already have it cut off the spool if you want. We're just going to use it for a couple of jump rings. I like to leave it on the spool, it's less waste. I'm also going to use this 20 gauge wire. This is 2 pieces of 20 gauge wire cut at 4.5 centimeters long. I'm also going to use some 24 gauge wire. This is cut at 25 centimeters long. For tools, we're going to need a pair of bent chain nose pliers, and as you can see, the tips are bent, hence the name bent chain nose pliers. And a regular pair of chain nose pliers, a pair of round nose pliers, and a pair of flush cutters. These are called flush cutters because it has a flush side, but it also has a concave side, but generally we just use the flush side to get a nice flush cut. We'll also need a chasing hammer. You'll need a bench block. You'll need 2 6mm beads. These are turquoise stone beads. You can use whatever beads you'd like. And this cut burr, I use this for rounding the ends of my wire over. You can use a regular nail file or sandpaper. We're also going to use this as an 8mm mandrel. I'm also going to use this crochet hook as a 5mm mandrel for my jump rings. So let's get started on this project. So now I'm going to take the 2 pieces of 18 gauge wire and my 8mm mandrel, which is my cut burr in this case, and the 6mm turquoise bead. And as you can see, this turquoise bead is slightly smaller than that mandrel, and that's what we want. We want that bead to fit inside of that teardrop shape. So I'm going to take my 2 pieces of 18 gauge wire and find center, and just lay that mandrel right on the center of those pieces of wire. And at the same time, I'm going to bend both pieces around this mandrel, bringing both ends up and toward each other until they touch. And then I'm going to make sure that my thumb is on the back side of this piece to ensure that we hold the shape, and then cross the ends over just slightly to get that nice point at the end of this teardrop shape, or the top part of it there. And now you can see I've got 2 nice little teardrop shapes that are both the same. And here you can see I've just readjusted and made a mirror image basically of the earring. So I have one wire crossing over on the right side top and the other crossing over on the left side top. Now I'm grabbing my bench block and my chasing hammer, and I'm going to flatten these earrings out a bit. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of flaring away from the top of the teardrop toward the base, and then I flip the piece over and do the same thing on the other side, just using light gentle taps. You don't want to just hammer super hard, you're gonna smash it too thin. And here you can see it's just got a nice little shine to it, but not only does it have a nice shine, it work hardens it. so your piece is not going to bend so easily when it's worn. And here you can see the difference between a hammered piece and an unhammered piece. It just adds a little bit of class and shine to it. So now I'm going to do the second one. The same thing, starting at the top, working my way down to the bottom. And I'm going to flip the piece, do the same thing, and notice how I'm just going toward the bottom with this. So I kind of want to pull that wire out away from the bottom of the teardrop. And here you can see I'm adjusting, and as I do that, you see how the wire just springs right back. That's the nice thing about work hardening. It does get firmer and harder, so it's harder to bend at this point. There you've got two evenly shaped teardrops ready to put our beads onto. Now we're going to grab our 24 gauge wire, and we're going to pop that 6mm turquoise bead, or whichever bead you're going to use, onto that wire. We're going to thread that wire down through that teardrop shape and set that bead toward the base of the teardrop. I flipped it over here because I'm right-handed and I like to work from my right side. So here I'm wrapping this weaving wire around the base wire, or that teardrop shape. I've done one full wrap, and there's 2 wraps, and I'm going to do a total of 5 wraps around this base wire. So here's the 3rd wrap, and the 4th wrap, and I'm going to pull this wire around to the back, and at the same time I'm going to smush my wires together. I like to use my nails a lot. Probably not the best thing for my nails. It's probably better to use tools. And here I'm going to pull through and get my last and final 5th wrap, keeping that bead inside of that teardrop shape. Pushing my wires together nice and snug. And now I'm going to start on the other side. So I'm going to tuck this wire through because I want it to be coming out the same side as it is on the other side of the bead. So there's one full wrap. Making sure I got it nice and tight and snug in there so there's not a lot of slippage. We want that bead to stay where it's at. There's 2 wraps. Three wraps. 4. And 5. So there we have all 5 of our wraps, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my bent chain nose pliers and do this the proper way, not use my fingernails, and push those wraps up close to each other. Get them nice and tight to each other, just like that. And now I'm just going to give these a nice snug pull, and then flush cut the end of my wire on the back side of this earring. Like that. And then with my bent chain nose pliers, I'm going to burnish this wire up against that flat side. Push it down and make sure I can't feel anything poking out there. I'm just going to make sure it's nice and tight again. All my wraps are snug to each other. And that feels pretty good. And now we're going to go to the other side. Again, we're going to pull it nice and snug. And then I'm going to flush cut that side. And again, grab my bent chain nose pliers and burnish the end of that wire up against the base wire. And snug up all those wraps nice and tight. There we go. Now I'm just going to make sure that everything is the way I want it, that my top pieces here are lined up correctly, that I've got the shape right, that my bead is set in place just right, because I'm a perfectionist and like everything perfect. But it is a piece of jewelry after all. It's supposed to look nice. And that piece is finished. So now we're going to work on the second side, and it's a mirror image of the first side. So I'm not going to bore you and show you the details of how I did the second time. So with the magic of YouTube editing, I now have two of the exact same pieces. The next step is to take these little top pieces and come down about 1 centimeter from the top and just give a slight little bend out away from the top a little bit. Basically straightening up those two pieces so that when they're pushed together they line up next to each other, they lay flat up against each other like that. And we're going to do the same thing for the other piece. So we're going to come down about 1 centimeter from the top and make a little bend upward or out away from the piece, just slightly. And then we want to make sure they just lay right next to each other. And now we're going to put the two pieces up next to each other and just make sure they're the same. And here I'm noticing that one is just a little taller than the other, so I'm going to go back and make some adjustments. And now is the time to do that. You don't want to do it after you've finished your piece. It just doesn't work like that at all. You just want to make sure you adjust as you go, make them look as close the same as possible. So here I've got them looking almost the same. I need to come in just a little bit more on this one, so I'm going to come down just a bit. Do a little bit more adjusting. And now I think I've got them just about perfect, or at least perfect enough for me anyway. So next we're going to grab the flush cutters and just cut off any excess on the top. We want these to be flush across the top. And I'm taking my chain nose and I'm just going to just push those up into each other and make sure they're laying nice and flat with each other. Grab my round nose pliers and I'm going to push the ends of those wires flush with my round nose pliers, the end of the round nose pliers there. And I'm going to roll this wire away from me and back toward the base wires. So I'm making a nice little loop here on the back side of my earring. So both wires are looped over at the same time, like that. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. So again, making sure both wires are flush up to each other, making sure the tops of those wires are flush inside of those round nose pliers, and then rolling them down toward the back of the piece. And there we have the second one complete. So what kind of stones would you guys use in a pair of earrings like this? I'm always curious to see what other people enjoy. Let me know in the comments below what you would use. I really like these turquoise stones. So next I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm going to make sure the ends of these loops are lined up behind those wires, as well as to straighten those loops up a little bit so they'll lay flush up against each other. So I'm going to do the same thing here on both sides. I'm going to go back and adjust this one again. And there we go. And now we're going to get ready to make our jump rings. So the next step is getting our 18 gauge wire. And again, I like to leave mine on the spool. This is a 5mm mandrel or crochet hook that I use as a mandrel. You can use anything as mandrels in your house. You just have to measure it on a ruler just to see how many millimeters it is. This is a 5mm mandrel. And I'm going to wrap my 18 gauge wire around this mandrel about 3 full times plus a little extra to make 2 jump rings. So I always like to go a little bit extra because sometimes that last loop isn't perfectly round. So I just want to make sure we have them looking nice. Now I'm going to grab my flush cutters and grab a hold of this in a way that I can actually flush cut it. So with my flush side facing the inside part of that wire, I'm going to cut off the tail end. So the flush cut is actually away from the tail end. So now I'm going to flip my flush cutters over and cut the other side of this jump ring flush. So there you can see I've got a perfect little round jump ring. I'm going to do that one more time with this little coil I have. So there you can see that little unflush side that I'm going to cut off with the flush cutters. So there I've snipped off that little end. And now I'm going to flip my flush cutters over and cut the other side. And there is my jump ring with 2 ends that meet perfectly with each other. So with my chain nose and my bent chain nose pliers, I'm going to give that a little twist. And then pop my earring right on that jump ring. Making sure I've got them facing the right direction. And now I'm going to twist that jump ring back into shape. Never pull your jump rings apart. You'll misshape that little circle, that little loop. And you want to twist it back into place. And there you have it, all put together. And now we're going to do it a second time, grabbing the jump ring with chain nose and bent chain nose, giving a little twist. And then pop that earring right on there. And then twisting the jump ring back into place. We're going to twist it back past and back and forth a couple of times. That helps to work harden that little jump ring. And then get it lined up just perfectly. And there you can see we got 2 earrings complete without the ear wires. So this is our last and final step. We're going to take our 20 gauge wire that was cut to 4.5 centimeters and take our round nose pliers and grab the end of the wire and making sure the end of that wire is flush with the top of my round nose pliers. I'm going to bend that wire back toward the base wire until it meets. So now you have two little perfect loops. And now I'm going to take my mandrel, in this case, which is my cup burr handle, and I'm going to bend this wire all the way around till it meets back with the loops that I made. And that wire is meeting back to the back side of those loops. And here you can see that one of my wires is just slightly longer than the other, so I go ahead and grab the flush cutters and just nip off that little end so that they're perfectly even with each other. And now I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers, after ensuring that everything looks good, everything's even and straight. I'm going to grab about 3 millimeters from the end and give both those wires a little bend outward. Just like that. And there you have the shape of the ear wires. Now to help hold that shape, I'm going to hammer the side that faces the earring, or the side that you see from the front of the ear. You don't want to hammer the part necessarily that goes down into the ear. It's kind of like putting a square peg in a round hole. It's not very comfortable. So I'm just hammering the front part of that ear wire and the loop, just to kind of harden it, to help hold its shape. And there you can see it also adds a nice little shine. I'm going to do the same thing with the other ear wire. Just a few little taps is all it takes. Just like that. There's the second one finished. Now I'm going to pop them back onto the mandrel, make sure I haven't lost my shape. Just make sure we get them nice and round still. And they are. And now with my cup burr, I'm going to round off the ends of these wires. The end of the wire is cut fresh with the flush cutters, and so that creates a jagged little edge or sharp edge. So this cup burr is basically doing what it's supposed to do. It's taking that burr off the end of the wire, and it's a little cup shape, so it goes over the end of the wire and it just files that wire down. You could get the same effect by using a nail file or a little fine piece of sandpaper, just to brush off the burr on the end of that wire and make it nice and rounded and smooth. Nobody wants a jagged earring going into their ear. Don't want any bleeding earlobes. So here you could see the difference between the more flat edge and the rounded edge there. So now we're going to do the second one. And there are all different types of ear wires that you can do. This is one of my favorites I like to do. There's French style, there's all sorts of styles, and you could sure do whatever style you like to do for ear wires. This is just one of the ways I like to do it. I also have little cup burrs that attach to my Dremel. So when I'm doing a bunch of earrings, I tend to use that because it's a lot faster and my hands don't get tired so quickly. So now we're going to attach the earrings to the ear wires. So again, like your jump ring, you twist the loop out. Don't pull it away, just twist it. Then you're going to twist it back in after popping your earring on there. And there it is attached. Now we're going to do the same thing with the other one. Again, twist that loop open. Put your earring right on there, making sure the front faces the front. And then twist that loop back into place. And there we have our completed earrings. There are so many variations you can do with these earrings. I was just thinking about it this morning. You could have silver wire, gold wire, platinum wire, all different colors. You can even do different types of stones. You could do faceted stones. You could do crystals, numbers of different colors. There's so many things you can do. You can even make the teardrop shapes larger or fatter, skinnier, whatever you want to do. Just let those creative juices flow. So what did you guys think of these earrings? Did you like them? Did you not like them? Would you have done something different? Would you have used different beads, different wire? Let me know in the comments below. Any comment is accepted. I'd love to hear your opinion and I'd love to get better. So let me know what you guys think. Also, if you liked this video, please don't forget to subscribe so that you could see more like it. Thanks again for watching. We'll see y'all next week.